Hello. Hey, it's Coach Tabatha Pittman. I am so excited to be speaking with you today regarding 5 things to look for in your future partner. So, first, welcome to this platform where we talk about all things relationship. So, I hope that this blesses you tremendously. I am going to tell you today about something that's near and dear to my heart, and of course, that being relationships, right? So, let's get right into it. We all know we've been in a relationship or two, and a lot of us have taken the magnetic relationship boot camp, which I'm super excited about. If you have not taken it, this is an opportunity to go to the link in my bio and sign up. It is now a self-paced course where you can access the videos from the live training and as well as the worksheets and things of that nature to supplement it. So let's get right into it. 5 things to look for in your future partner. Number one, physical attraction. Now somebody may be saying, Tabitha, that sounds so shallow. Are you sure? But notice I said physical attraction, not necessarily beauty. Okay, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So we are talking about physical attraction. And when I say that, I mean like you can't be repulsed by someone, right? You're not going to be attracted to them for the long run either, right? And it could be that maybe the people in your family think that this guy is drop dead gorgeous, but you don't feel the physical attraction, the chemistry, and things of that nature. That's probably not the one for you, right? So even though he may be handsome or she may be beautiful, if the chemistry isn't there, trust me, trust your instinct, trust your gut. That's telling you something. You may meet someone who is everything, right? And but they don't add up, or you don't have that physical je ne sais quoi, if you will. But then again, you can meet someone who's average, but then over time you grow and you become more attracted to that person. And even if all your friends think that the other guy was more attractive and this guy is less attractive, what matters is the chemistry, the physical attraction that you have for that person. And sometimes attraction grows as you get to know the person, right? And so if your feelings don't develop before you get engaged, before all the things, don't assume they're going to change once you get married, okay? Number two, look for someone who has ambitious humility. What do you mean by that, Tabitha? Ambitious humility. Someone who is hungry enough to go after their dreams and goals, but yet humble enough to stay grounded in God. This is critical. It feels, it may seem like, they get excited about learning. This is the person that you want to be, someone who's excited about learning about their strengths and their weaknesses, right? And making sure that they have structure in their life that will protect them and others from their weaknesses. They're aware of who they are. They have emotional intelligence, right? You want to be with someone like that, someone who has that emotional intelligence. And the first part of emotional intelligence is the self-awareness piece, right? So they're aware of their strengths, their weaknesses, their areas for growth, however you want to look at that. And they're also humble enough to recognize that they're not always right. And maybe they haven't always got there, right? And that there's always room to grow. This is someone that you can build a future with, right? They may say to themselves, there's always room for improvement, right? Because it's not about the destination, but about the journey. So it's not about perfection. Remember, perfection is a trick of the enemy. There's only one person who is perfect, and we know that is Jesus. The person that you're looking for with the ambitious humility, that's the type of person who may recite to themselves, it's about progress. As long as I'm building healthy habits in my life, I'm working on myself, I'm growing in my own self-awareness and self-care, then I'm good, right? That's the type of person that you want to look for to build a relationship with. And yes, it's about eagerness as well, right? That's the ambitious part. If the person is on autopilot, right, and they're just that may not be the right person. Just kind of stay, they're maybe get even complacent where they are. That's a thing, because that's going to be really frustrating for you if you're on the other side of that marriage, right? So let me add this. We don't want someone who is emotionally lazy either, right? Meaning they're satisfied with where they are. They get upset and yell when it's brought to their attention. They may even say something like, why don't you just accept me for who I am? Or that's just who I am. That's just how I am, right? Instead of wanting to grow and make change for the good or for the betterment of the couple, right? So, number 3, psychological wholeness and maturity. And so by this I mean we want to make sure that they've taken the time to process any childhood traumas, right? If they were abused as a child, if they were demeaned as a child, right? Whether no matter what the type of abuse it was, if they experienced some type of trauma, have they dealt with those childhood pains and traumas? The things that are in their past are going to come forward. And so a lot of times growing up, there's sexual, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, even being bullied on the playground. All of these things can manifest inside of your marriage. And so we want to make sure that this person has dealt with that. Even if an ex has cheated on them, right? And all of these things will have an impact. The way maybe that they see their parents or the way their parents did things. Any of these traumas will impact their parenting. It's going to impact the marriage. Ultimately, it's going to impact you. So look for someone who's dealt with some of those childhood traumas, right? And so if your partner has never taken time to go to counseling, especially if there's been abuse, if there's any kind of abuse, they need to see a counselor who specializes with abuse, and they need to see someone before you say, I do. Another thing that fits in this space is grief. If they haven't mourned the loss of a parent, the loss of a loved one who was close to them, a friend, etc., if they haven't mourned that properly, if they haven't gone to some type of counseling, grief counseling, gotten a grief coach, any of those things, these are going to be some of the things that you're going to look for, right? You're going to look for, so how did you deal with that? Have you spoken with someone about the pain, about the trauma, about, the grief that you're experiencing, having lost XYZ person, right? And because you'll need to know how it's changed their life if they have, right? And if they haven't, you want to encourage them to get some help. Another thing is, whether it's been 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years down the road, this will ultimately come out, and it will be really challenging for you. Your potential mate, if they haven't processed those traumas, if they haven't processed that grief, it comes out. It may come out while you're dating. It may come out during the engagement, but we know that if you're together with someone 10, 20, 30 years, it's going to come out, right? So what happens in this case? You're dating and you're engaged, and you notice when people are dating and they're engaged, they're on their best behavior. They're putting their best foot forward, right? But as soon as you cross the threshold into marriage, boom, now the real them comes out. The rhythm of life starts to take its effect, right? And the real person will show up. And now if you haven't had those conversations, and some of those conversations are tough conversations, but if you haven't had those conversations before you put all that effort in, then it's going to manifest in the marriage. So you need to be comfortable enough to have this conversation with them and ask them these tough questions now while you're dating and or engaged. These things will come out as insecurities because they're unprocessed areas of pain and trauma, right? And you know what else? What we do with insecurities, we either overcompensate for them, right? Or we like to sweep it under the rug altogether. Don't worry about me, I'm good, and that's not true, right? Or people will run and hide because they never talked about it in the past. These are the red flags that I want you to look out for. If you hear the stories of neglect and abandonment or some type of wounds regarding trauma, and you start asking, what did you do to get help? And they start shutting you down, or nothing here to see, they're telling you that type of dialogue, then you almost always know that this is something that and you want to encourage them again to get help. I would say this is a big red flag because it's unprocessed, right? So we don't know how it's played out throughout their life at some point. Here's another example. If they say, I got abused, but like, we don't talk about it. That's like, bad by black sheep. I don't even want to go there. They start talking like that and they're unwilling to talk about it. That's not a good look. That's a bad sign. That's a red flag for you to look for when you're dating someone. If they don't want to talk about these things, if they're a closed book about their past, then that's probably a red flag for you, right? Because now we don't know what we're up against. And then when you get into a marriage, again, these things will come to life and you'll be looking like, oh my goodness, what did I just do here? Another red flag, if you visit with their family and you see extremely toxic behaviors that no one is addressing, red flag, bleep, 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 red flag. Or people keep minimizing the negative behaviors, right? It's almost a tacit approval of such, right? And so, sure enough, right, because this is part of their family, part of their culture, these things will become something in your marriage eventually. And that approval, like I said, it'll carry over into the marriage 9 times out of 10. So my fourth point to you today is you want a mate that is quick to apologize. You want someone who's quick to apologize. Let me tell you this before I go any further. Apology is critical for marriage. You're always in marriage. It's an act of giving and forgiving. Okay. We all make mistakes in our relationships. None of us is perfect again, right? And so you want your partner to recognize immediately that they've hurt you, right? And they want to come to you and reconcile. I apologize for hurting you, and I didn't do it on purpose. Please forgive me. Remember that an apology is something we do for others to express our concern and love for them, right? So I'm sorry, that was my fault. I did that and I apologize right away, right? As soon as it's brought to your attention. And we're apologizing to remind others that we care for them. An apology is a sign of humility, okay? An apology actually requires humility. And let me say that a person who refuses to apologize, that's a sign of pride, right? And so we definitely want to be looking for these indicators within the relationship before I do. So if someone is humble enough, they will recognize and validate your feelings, which is a very important thing inside of a marriage. In that apology to validate, they'll say, wow, I'm so sorry I hurt you, right? And now for apologies, we call it of the law of unintended consequences, right? I know that I hurt you. I don't want to come into this hurting you, right? I apologize. How can I make it right? Or I'm going to work on this about me, And so, the intent is also something that we evaluate here, right? People get angry and so they may say something, but if they come back and apologize, right, we want to have a forgiving heart toward them. So we make mistakes, but we don't hold it against them. But you'll find these things out. You'll find it out when they're willing to say, I apologize. And I didn't do that intentionally. Pardon me. So this is something that I want you to know. I want you to listen very carefully to these things and just maybe even put them on replay. And here's one thing. You do not want to live your life in a constant state of apology either, right? You don't want to live your life in a constant state of apology where the person is always apologizing because they hurt your feelings and things of that nature. You're constantly fighting your partner to validate your feelings. You're constantly fighting your partner to recognize how he or she hurt you, right? You don't want that in your marriage. And so I want you to get that as clear as I can make it, that apology, someone who is quick to apologize, is going to be a good indicator of someone that you can look for to having a fruitful marriage with. the second part of that, the more self-aware you become, the more you take ownership and responsibility, right, for the apology, for the things that you've done wrong. And you can even change, right? And that's how we cultivate that change inside of the relationships. And so someone who doesn't do that, right, that's a cause for the red flag. Look for the obvious things, when they're blaming other people. Oh, it was her fault. Or, my mom made me do that because she's always nagging, and so I did this because of her. No, we don't want someone who plays the blame game either, right? We want someone who owns it, who takes responsibility and accountability for things. And so if it's never their fault, that's a red flag. Another red flag is if they hold grudges. They are holding a grudge against their parents from something that happened when they were 16 and now they're 44. And you're like, wow, you haven't let that go. That's a big sign. That's a red flag, a big flashing red stop sign right there that says that's something that needs some attention, and it's something that you want to further evaluate before I do. It could be their past relationships. It could be any of these. If they constantly kind of, fester this anger, then that's something that we have to pay attention to, right? Another big red flag is if you hear the words, I'm sorry, all the time, right? And then there's no action to follow up. There's no change, right? That follows the I'm sorry. So if they're always saying I'm sorry, but then they don't show you that they have changed the behavior that made them have to apologize, that's a red flag. Now, my fifth and final quality is this, and I probably could have had about 20 of these, but these are my top 5. I always see couples who are lacking this. As a relationship coach, I see women who have told me stories about these things, and so that's why these 5 made my top 5. And so this one probably comes as no surprise, but trustworthiness. You want to look for a partner who is trustworthy. This partner, the person you decide to spend the rest of your life with, needs to be someone that you can trust. Someone you trust with your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, your secrets even, right? And that you're going to trust with, your children and your homes and your finances, all of these things. So I believe that trust is actually more important than love. Because love changes. There are times when you always love your spouse, but there are times you're going to be in love with them. So there are differences, there are changes, right? And when you get married, love is a choice, and love requires sacrifice, right? But trusting that person with your heart, trusting them. And it's definitely, love is definitely more of a feeling. It's a feeling, right? But trust is the foundation that marriage is built upon. I like to say it like this. Trust is something that takes forever to build, but just moments to crumble down. I also heard it said this way, that trust is built in drops, but it's lost in buckets. And so we want to be mindful of that. We want to make sure that person is trustworthy, when we're looking at building a life with this person. You've got to trust them with so many things. You got to trust them sexually, right? You got to trust them physically and spiritually. In every area, you have to be able to trust your partner. And so hopefully it's a mutual trust that he or she can trust you also, right? And so you got to make sure that your partner is a secret keeper, a promise keeper, right? That they're reliable. These things are critical to having a sound marriage. And so we want to make sure that it's trustworthiness. And I think at the base of trustworthiness is their integrity. Integrity is defined as if they're doing the right things even when no one is watching. Integrity, right? And so here are some of the red flags of someone who is not displaying trustworthiness, right? When you're watching your potential spouse, you want to be looking for, are they cheating on their taxes? Or, if a cashier gave them the wrong amount of money, are they going to give it back? Or are they going to make the correction? Any of these things, some of these are just slight indicators, but if someone does the slightest thing, will they do that inside of your relationship? So I just want to get you in the mindset of thinking about these things, and how they respond is also an indicator. As you start to watch this potential person, do they tell little white lies? Because if they tell a little one, then they may tell a big one, right? Are there inconsistencies with their stories? These are all red flags. And so there needs to be a conversation around what healthy boundaries look like. What, how are we going to protect ourselves, right, inside of this new relationship? And how is this not going to happen to us in the future, right? So for example, if they cheated on a previous in a previous relationship, right, you need to know what safeguards, what help they've sought out, right, so that they don't do that inside of your relationship. Cheating is easier when you're married, right? Because, well, you know all the things, right? But it's going to be a lot easier to cheat when you're married if you can't stay faithful while you're single, while you're dating, while you're engaged, right? So we want to look at those things as well. I would also look at any suspicious behavior. Do they always crowd their phone? Do they hide it so that you can't look at it? And these may seem like really minute things, but this is something, right? Because if there's a secret, right, then that's something for you to think about. We all have accounts, and there are people who have secret accounts, and they don't want you to find out about it. So just keep your eyes open. 40% of marriages experience affairs and sexual boundaries that have been crossed. And so I don't want you to be in that position, right? And so it's happening, it's on the rise, and it's one of the things that you must protect yourself from, because a betrayal, like an affair, is a daunting experience, right? And it's a crushing experience. And again, it crushes the trustworthiness inside of the marriage. So trustworthy people, on the other hand, are people who are confidence bearers, right? They're the people who will keep your secret. They're the people that, you can look at and say they don't gossip, they don't share anyone else's secret. And so these are things that you're looking for in your potential spouse. So you're probably looking at me and saying, Tabitha, this is a big list, right? And I know I just gave you 5 qualities, my top 5, right? And you may be watching thinking like, oh my goodness, there are things that I don't add up for. And maybe that means that you need to do some work, okay? And that's fine. Maybe your partner doesn't add up, and that means that they need to do some work. But these are things that I'm telling you will make your marriage better when you have these boxes checked off. You've had these conversations and you're looking for those things in regards to your spouse. And so I'm not saying call off the wedding, right? I'm not even saying that, hey, you should just break up or anything like that. But what I am saying is take your time. I believe in having a care force. A lot of you know that about me. I believe in having a care force, right? You got 5 people that you need to be able to go to: your counselor, your pastor, your coach. Hopefully that's me, your best friend. And then you need to have a prophet, someone who can speak into your life prophetically, and who these people are praying for you, right? They're interceding for you, and they look out for your best, right? And so whether it's me or a premarital counselor or someone else, this is something that you need to take your time with and evaluate your life, evaluate your partner, and evaluate some of the steps that you need to take. There's power in having a care force. There's power in having people surround you and your spouse with this type of love to keep you lifted up. Otherwise, you can't move forward, right? It really gets difficult on the other side of marriage. Once you say, I do, getting into these different things, these things become expensive. These things become time consuming if you don't iron them out while you're single and or engaged, right? So listen carefully to what is being said. And if your partner isn't willing to change, right, when you're asking these questions, when you're having these difficult conversations, and they don't have these qualities, then that may be a sign that they don't have the willingness to learn. They don't have the ambitious humility that is required to move forward in a prosperous and successful marriage. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it may be time for you to say, do I really want to invest my life with this partner? Do I really want to spend my life? Do I really want to share my life with this person? That's going to be critical, okay? And I can tell you, if you answered and you said, oh, wow, Tabitha, this really gives me reason to pause, right? And that's okay, because you deserve the best. You deserve the best. And marriage isn't for It's not for the frail. It's not for the weak. It's not for the faint of heart, people would say, right? Marriage requires elbow grease. It requires real work. It requires the grit that people talk about all the time. So choose integrity in your marriage. Choose integrity in your engagement and your dating, right? And that's how we begin to evaluate and come up with the win-win situations, right? Where you found someone who's measuring up and adding up and has these great qualities, be it male or female, because I believe these qualities are unisex, if you will, right? These are qualities to look for in a female. These are qualities to look for in a male, in a husband or a potential husband and a potential wife. So anyone can apply these qualities and win in their relationship. And it's okay to sit back and say, you know what? Hey, this relationship may not be a great fit for what I'm looking for in the future if that person doesn't add up, right? You deserve the best. So you have to sometimes, say, in the long run, I may have saved myself some heartache. I may have saved myself some pain. And I may have even saved myself, an entry into divorce court. And that's what we all want, right? We want to make sure that we're saving ourselves from those negative experiences because we're doing the work on the front end, right? And nothing's nothing's beyond God's reach. We know that also, but we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence on the front end. And so I pray that something I've said today in these 5 qualities has blessed you. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. Please like, share, and subscribe. Turn on your notifications so that you can be here to get the relationship information that I'm sharing. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. That's _Tabitha, TABATHA_Pittman, PITTMAN. And that is on Instagram. You can also subscribe and turn your notifications on YouTube, where you can follow me at Coach Tabatha Inspires. Have a great day. God bless and take care.